let's just start with this. When you heard about this test, first of all, what was your first reaction? You know there are genetic tests out there that people can order now
Yeah.
on the internet even. What was your first reaction to hearing about this?
Well, I was skeptical because although there are genetic tests for diseases, this is the first I've heard of a genetic test for athletic ability, and the fact that you can, or the idea that you can predict athletic ability based on just one gene is pretty far-fetched. But it is based on a research study, and I looked up that study, and although there is some association with having a certain version of this one gene, um, it's not clear at all that it has really any predictive value. So I was skeptical.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
So
and
so then the test itself, you looked into. I know they have it on the website, right? And you looked into that test. Is it valid?
it's based on this one study, it's valid in the sense that you can offer this test. So the study that this is based on is essentially something that says if you're an elite athlete and involved in sort of power or sprint kind of sports that need a lot of explosive muscle force, then you're more likely to have a certain version of this gene. But this is a study based on a limited number of people and only white individuals from Australia. So it's a few hundred people. So it's by no means comprehensive, and it's not the final word. So um, so it's the research study that it's based on is valid, but the test itself, it's not been shown that it really has any predictive power because obviously this is very new and people are just starting to do these tests on their kids. So it seems more like a case of a company wanting to make a quick buck based on research that's still very preliminary.
And especially at the beginning of the preliminary of the research field, you were talking about there are other tests out there on this very gene that may contradict
There
what
are other
that
research
says.
studies, yes. So subsequent to the first study that came out that showed this association between elite athletes and having a certain copy of the gene, there are other studies that try to do exactly the same thing with the same gene using other populations. So this study was based in Australia from a group based in Australia. So there are groups in Europe and in China that have tried to replicate it, just replicate the findings of the study, and they don't find the same association. So even the science that it's based on has been called into question, and that might just reflect the complexity of human beings and different populations. So what's true for a small number of people may not be valid for the general population. So that's why I certainly wouldn't go out and rush to have my child tested based on this one study.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you probably wouldn't have your child based on what we talked about tested anyway.
Yeah, because there's easier ways to tell if your kid is interested in certain kinds of sports and how good they are at it. And like we talked about, it's you can just look at how they do in the field, and a coach can tell how good they are going to be and what their inclination is. And importantly, it's not just what they are inclined to do now, but what they can be trained to do and how their aptitude develops. So it's kind of risky to have to make decisions based on a test that just tells you one little tiny piece of your genetic makeup, because that's not the only thing that goes into making someone a good athlete.
Yeah, and especially when you're talking about athletics. And I can see genetic testing, and when you're testing for diseases, there are a lot of questions there if you
Yeah,
have that.
exactly.
But testing for an athletic gene?
Yeah, so there's really no, if anyone claims that there's a gene for athletic ability, that's just wrong, because there is no genes. I mean, genes make proteins, they do, there are genes that help your muscle cells grow, but that's really, again, a very tiny part of what you need to become an athlete. So just having a good gene may mean nothing if you don't have all the other things that are necessary to make you a good athlete.
what do you see as the future of this area? I know this is your field, but what about over the internet ordering of these tests? Sometimes you can walk into a drugstore
Yeah,
and get
exactly.
some genetic tests.
Well, I think the tests are not going to go away, and we'll see more and more of them as people are analyzing the human genome for more and more variants. There will be more of these associations that come up, but I think there'll be some diseases and some conditions for which the test is very robust, in the sense that when you do the test, the answer you get is 100% or 90%. You can be sure that you're going to get this this disease. So it really applies to a very limited number of diseases for which the tests have existed for a long time. But for something like athletic ability or how well you're going to do in school and things like that, I can't say that people won't be selling tests, because people are always trying to sell sell anything that sort of prey on people's anxiety. But
Right.
I think the chances that they will really benefit the people that are trying to use them, I think is very low.
Okay, we sent a test off of a swab of a 6-year-old boy
Uh-huh.
whose father thinks he is going to have a very powerful, he's going to get the power elite athlete gene just because of the way he acts already.
Okay.
Okay. Any results that we get back from something that we just sent off on the internet like this, we ordered, we sent it off to some lab somewhere in Australia. What would you, as a an expert in this field, say to someone about the results that they get back?
Well, I would say to this person, if your kid is really gung-ho about that sport and he's and it looks like he's doing well, go for it. I mean, encourage that by all means, but forget about the test. The test is not going to do anything. Like if the test comes back negative, what are you going to do? I mean, stop him from playing that sport? I mean, that'd be the wrong decision. So in that sense, the test doesn't really add anything. So it really depends on the kid's inclination and how much you want to encourage it, and how well he does, and what his coach thinks about him, and things like that. So the test would be kind of insignificant. I would say don't worry about it.